Hey, what's going on, Party Chat Sports? It's one of your hosts, Caleb Gill, and this isn't your normal Wednesday episode. We are going to do that podcast episode tomorrow. Today, some huge breaking news out of the NFL landscape as I'm recording this on Tuesday, October 8th at about 9:30 p.m. Huge breaking news. And it's not the news that everybody was expecting when it comes to the Jets this week. It's something that came as a shock for many reasons. We're going to dive into that, and I don't expect this episode to take very long. I just need to get out my feelings at this point. So, for those that have been living under a rock for the last 24 hours, even last 12 hours, the New York Jets have decided to part ways with head coach Robert Saleh. This came as a shock, like I said, for many reasons. First and foremost, Woody Johnson, in his 25 years of owning this team, has never had an in-season firing. The dude had Adam Gase, right? And that entire season, it was, all right, you got to get rid of him now. You got to get rid of him now. How much more are you going to put up? And the Jets stuck with Adam Gase through that season. Granted, Woody Johnson wasn't here. He was overseas. And that's another thing to take into consideration as well with a lot of these moves that the Jets have made the last couple of years. It wasn't Woody Johnson that hired Adam Gase, fired Adam Gase, or hired Robert Saleh. I don't think Woody Johnson was here for Saleh. That was like right around the time that Johnson was returning back to the organization from his ambassador duties. So I'm pretty sure it was Christopher Johnson that led the charge on that. I could be wrong. But Woody Johnson deciding after 5 games this year, this was an all-in season, right? This was, you have Aaron Rodgers, he's back, he's healthy. This is the year to break the longest playoff drought in Major League sports, in North American sports. And you start 2-3. Your last 2 losses coming against the Denver Broncos and the Minnesota Vikings, where it's not just that they lost, it's how they lost and how they looked in those games. That was really detrimental to Saleh. You cannot, and this is something that happened throughout most of Saleh's tenure. I've mentioned this a couple different times on the pod. So there will be some repetition to what I'm saying here, if you've been paying attention or if you've been listening, watching some of the other episodes when I talk about the Jets have looked lethargic. They come out, and it takes them until about halftime to finally get up, wake up, get off the bus, and be ready to play. This is not a team that is ready from the first whistle. Once that ball is kicked off to start a game, the team's just not ready to play, typically, under Saleh. There's a reason he's 20-36 as a head coach over 3.5 years. That's a terrible winning percentage. That puts him in Rich Kotite and Adam Gase level, that level of failure as a head coach. And Rich Kotite and Adam Gase are the 2 worst head coaches in Jets history. Like, if you ask most Jets fans, they're going to tell you Kotite or Gase, and you can have an argument either way. Saleh is in that territory. He's in that company right now. That's terrible. He was brought in to this team to rejuvenate everybody and help, all gas, no brakes mentality. But it really just seems to be all brakes lately. There's no gas. It's mostly brakes. And the one thing that a lot of people are saying, the offense is the issue. Why is a defensive head coach the one getting fired? At the end of the day, Robert Saleh wasn't brought in to be the defensive coordinator. He was brought in to be the head coach. And it's one thing if he was actually acting as a defensive coordinator, but he wasn't. His sole purpose when he got here was to be the CEO of the team. He got here, he immediately handed duties off to Jeff Ulbrich, who was named the interim head coach today. So the defensive play calling duties went to him immediately off the riff. Saleh this year said he wanted to be more involved in the offense. So that's team meetings, quarterback room, all that stuff. He wanted to be more involved in the entire team. And the more they said things were changing, the more they stayed the same. I said this multiple times over the course of the last year. Aaron Rodgers wasn't going to fix everything. The Jets had a lot of issues, and a lot of people point at they were 7-10. They would have made the playoffs with a competent quarterback. Maybe. Probably. How far are you getting, though? Because your coaching staff holds you back. Robert Saleh was given the benefit of the doubt the first year. I mean, even the last 2 years. Second year of Zach Wilson, and then last year, Aaron, he was given the benefit of the doubt every step of the way, but nothing changed. There was his in-game clock management never got better. The game planning wasn't getting better. The way they start games wasn't getting better. And the tone, the mentality has always been Super Bowl or bust. For the last year or so, that's what it's been. This is not a team that looks like a team that's really even capable of making the playoffs when they play on Sundays. Like, they do not look like that level of team. And when you go out there, all right, so you know how they say animals, dogs specifically, take on the actions of their owners, or they take on the personality of their owners. So if the owner is hyper energetic, the dog's probably going to be hyper energetic. But the owner of the dog is a little bit more lazy. It's just sitting on its couch all day. The dog's going to be more lazy. Teams are very similar to that. A team will take on the personality of their head coach. And the personality of the head coach was just, you figure, every time they cut to the sideline of Saleh, it was just a stoic face. It was just staring off into blank space, baby. I'll write your name. So there's something to that where, if the head coach isn't going to show emotion, why are we? And it came as a shock because of the timing. It didn't come as a shock because it was the wrong move. I think the timing of it was wrong. I think it happened like 6 months too late. I said last year, if you don't trust Robert Saleh, why are you rolling with him in a Super Bowl or bust year? If you're even debating, I mean, you gave him a 5-game window. That's the leash he had. Why'd you keep him to begin with? If that's all he was given. It seemed like a lot of why it happened now is because of the last 2 weeks. I mean, they started off 2-1, coming off of a big Thursday night football victory against the Patriots, extra time off, and they still looked, they were outcoached, they were outplayed. With extra time, you're supposed to, use that time to develop a better game plan, get ready for that next game. That's an advantage. The fact that they played Thursday night football before the Broncos, who they should have just been able to take care of business. And a lot of the reporting I'm seeing today is that loss to the Broncos shocked and sent ripple effects throughout the entire, and shockwaves throughout the entire Jets organization. And when you lose the way they did, where they lost to a quarterback that threw for, 60 yards? They lost by 1 point. The offense just wasn't ready and firing. The defense, they got torn apart, but that'll happen. They still, that first drive, defense was getting torn apart a little bit. So the Jets took on the personality of their head coach, where they just didn't show emotion. They just sleptwalked through everything and just expected everything to fall into place for them without actually working for it. I think Robert Saleh is a hell of a defensive mind. Hell of a defensive mind. But I also believe he's a bad head coach. And that's okay. That's okay. Steve Spagnuolo, he was not a good head coach. Not a good head coach. But he's a great defensive coordinator for the Chiefs. Some people are just better coordinators. Saleh, what he's been preaching lately is he wants to treat everybody with respect, and he's not a yeller. He's not going to discipline. He wants people to self-discipline. It's not working. It wasn't working. But he wasn't willing to change, and when the head coach isn't willing to change, something does have to give. Now, the other reason I was surprised with the timing of this is because the offense. The offense has been the biggest issue pretty much for the last decade, if we're being honest, but especially the last couple weeks. Most of the season, the Jets' offense hasn't looked like a legitimate offense. And I thought the move was to get rid of Nathaniel Hackett, or at the very least, take away his play calling duties. Not that Todd Downing is much of an upgrade, but it's something. When you have offensive struggles, you tend to fire the offensive coordinator, not the defensive-minded head coach. But at the end of the day, a change did need to be made. You're 2-3. You are one loss away from starting 2-4, and about to be DEFCON, whatever. The alarms were already starting to sound. But also, a Tuesday morning, Saleh yesterday on Monday went through his press conference, his Monday morning press conference that he does every week. Did that. Came into work Tuesday, about to get ready for the Bills. There was another report that said that he was going to take away play calling duties from Nathaniel Hackett. And then 5 minutes later, after he decided that, is when he got fired. Now, some of that, there's a lot of leaks that came out today that seem to be from Saleh's side to save face. Kind of tells you, if Saleh's more worried about saving face than he is, running the team, it's not a great look for him. I get why he's doing it, but at the end of the day, it's still not a good look. I've been on the fire Saleh train for less than a year. I'm surprised it came now. It needed to come sooner. It's tough, man. You hate to see anybody lose their job, but at the end of the day, the NFL is a results business. If you're not getting the results, if you're not winning, it's time to make a change. And good for Woody for identifying that, sooner rather than later, I guess. Better late than never. And the move to promote Jeff Ulbrich to head coach, I like. I thought it would be him or Ron Middleton. Ron Middleton he is a tight end coach. He was the assistant head coach under Robert Saleh. And when Saleh was out for a game with COVID, Middleton was the guy that stepped up. And, they won that game. They were ready. They were pumped. The energy of that game with Middleton was different. And that's another thing with Saleh, too, just the energy. He was brought in. You look at all those clips of him when he was with the 49ers, and he is super energetic. He comes to New York. He's a head coach, and that energy's gone. And that just might be part of being with the Jets. It is draining. New York is a tough market. It's not for everybody. It's not for a lot of people. But that energy. And also, what did Saleh do? What was his role on this team? He wasn't the defensive play caller. Jeff Ulbrich was the one running the defense. Saleh's defense, yes, but it's actually Ulbrich's, because Ulbrich's the one that's calling the plays. He's drawing everything up. He's the game planning. And then you look on Sundays or during a game. I get being the head coach and you have to watch for time, but it's not like Saleh's going and talking to other players and trying to coach them up in game like some other head coaches do. The only shots you ever see of Saleh is him high-fiving guys as they come off the field, or just the "Are you kidding me" looks, or the checked out looks. And I think Saleh has been checked out this entire season. He did not come off as a man that wanted to be in New York. He didn't, straight up. It seemed like he was done. He was ready for his tenure in New York to be over. It was just time. It's been time to cut bait. The thing that sucks is there's never been, for the Jets, who did this to help save the season, because it is a Super Bowl or bust mentality, there's never been an interim head coach. After a head coach was fired, no interim head coach has ever made it to the playoffs. If you say Rich Bisaccia with the Raiders, or John Gruden wasn't fired, he resigned. So no head coach that was ever fired and then replaced with an interim head coach mid-season has ever made the playoffs. I've been on record, even because I felt this coaching staff was going to hold this team back. The offensive coaching staff, which was built by Saleh, yes, Nathaniel Hackett is a Aaron Rodgers guy, but they were going to bring Nathaniel Hackett either way, regardless of if they were getting Aaron Rodgers or not. Like, that was his OC, because no one else was going to take the job. And then, yeah, sure, we can have arguments all day about Nate Hackett and Aaron Rodgers and why Nate Hackett's here. But what about the rest of the staff? Keith Carter, the offensive line coach, he came from Tennessee, and he was not liked at all in Tennessee. Todd Downing, pretty much the assistant OC, quarterback coach, he came from the Titans, not well regarded. So, like, you've got a bunch of Titan retreats on this coaching staff. You've got Nate Hackett. Saleh, you made your bet. I get the circumstance sucked. I get that you were probably forced to fire Mike LaFleur, your buddy. At the end of the day, these are your hires. You are the head coach. Your job is to oversee the entire team, the entire coaching staff. And it failed. The defensive coaching staff is good. But you're not just in charge of the defense. You're in charge of everybody. And you're 2-3 this year. If you said to anybody heading into the season that the Jets were going to start 2-3, it'd be looked at as failure. That's exactly what this is. It's a failure right now. The Broncos lost. The Vikings lost. Like, the Vikings are 5-0, and, hats off to them, hats off to Cam. But it's winnable. Like, you lost by a score in a game where you didn't get off the bus. Rodgers also threw 3 interceptions, and we'll touch on that a little bit more tomorrow. But the same issues have persisted throughout his entire tenure. The one thing that was supposed to change everything didn't. Aaron Rodgers, like I've been saying, is not Jesus Christ himself. He is not going to save the Jets all by his lonesome self. The coaching staff was going to hold him back, and that's exactly what's happened. Rodgers does have a lot of blame, but he's not short of it. He's not free of any blame. Saleh, though, as a head coach, when you're 20-36, as Bill Parcells used to say, your record is who you are, what your record says. I don't think I said that correctly. You know what I mean. When you are a losing head coach, most of your losses, actually, you have, what was it, like 18 losses by double-digit points. You have nearly as many losses as a head coach by double-digit points as you do wins. You can't have that. It's one thing to lose. Remember the year where the Vikings were losing every game close? Like, they were all one-score games within 7 points or 6-5. If that was the case, it'd be different. Because then it's like, oh, we're only a piece or two away. But when you're losing games consistently, by multiple scores, you're just not showing up. And when you have players saying, the Quincy Williams quote, actually, when I saw the Quincy Williams quote after the game Sunday morning, that's when I knew, okay, something is really wrong. Let's see if I can find it. All right. This is his quote. After the game against the Vikings, he said, I'm going to be honest. People get tired of hearing the same shit. People got to start taking accountability. People get tired of hearing the same thing every week. His Saleh's message was starting to fall on deaf ears, is what it sounds like. It wasn't being taken seriously, and now you move forward. Like I've said it before, Saleh's a good defensive coordinator, great defensive mind. He's not a good head coach. And it took the Jets long enough to realize that. So from here, the Jets just move forward. Jeff Ulbrich, I think, is going to help provide some sort of spark, at least for a minute. And maybe that's all they need right now. Maybe they just need that jump start. Maybe they just need a little spark, light something under themselves so that they can beat the Bills, take first place in the AFC East, and then roll from there. How long that spark lasts, how long that flame is ignited for, we'll see. Because then you have a primetime matchup against the Steelers in Pittsburgh. You play the Patriots again. You have a Thursday night football game against the Texans. Like, a change needed to be made before this snowball effect turns into a giant avalanche and ruins everything like it's close to doing. But you have a chance to save the season. We'll see what other moves come. Nothing has happened on the Devontae Adams front yet, and it looks like because Derek Carr got hurt and the Jets made a change of head coach, there is going to probably be a little lull in the Devontae Adams trade. We'll see what else happens. I'm on record saying I am unsure if the Jets even make the playoffs this year. And this was before Robert Saleh was fired. Like, I felt that low on Saleh and the staff to even think that they would make the playoffs. And now at 2-3, interim head coach, it's going to be even tougher. Stay tuned tomorrow. We've got our 100th podcast episode at Party Chat Sports. We've got a lot of other good things up on our TikTok as well. Dylan talking about the Cincinnati Reds hire, a couple other things. What else we got on there? Cam's parlay from last week. That video is up there. It didn't hit, by the way. Another Cam TikTok because we all give him crap for the Vikings being 5-0 and us not letting him enjoy it. So yeah, we've got all that up on TikTok, a bunch of other TikToks. Stay tuned to the feed at Party Chat Sports on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Stay up to date on Twitter, all at Party Chat Sports. We'll be back tomorrow with our 100th podcast episode. Until next time, we'll see what else happens on the Jets front. I'm sure there's a lot more changes coming. But for now, Robert Saleh out of NYJ. Jeff Ulbrich in his place. We'll see where it goes from here. Have a good night, everybody. JTS.